Maurice, I'm going to let you respond.
Behind this, I know my guy Hadley's not behind this. All of a sudden, on a random August 3rd, the Fearless producers don't learn how to find July 17th. It's been 10 shows. I counted my average 29 points and 9 assists. Not a single highlight was played on this platform. Jason is incredible. Hadley, I feel like you have something to do with this. I'm going to call you after the show.
And so what your coaches said, what
Anamont, all of the, you just gave me the
rooting for Caitlin Clark and the Fever to
who
win.
You were rooting for. I said
Caitlin may very well light her up the next time they play. All right. But
right out of the gate, Maurice pushes back hard on the idea that Iowa didn't prepare Clark for the 1BA, pointing out she carried real, nightly pressure to deliver for her team in a way some of her peers, like Paige Buchers at UConn, simply didn't have to. That's a fair, substantive basketball argument about roster construction and pressure, not just a hot take.
I cannot pick another team when it comes to you. Yeah, there's no way I could suffer like that to you. No.
Prediction before the game? You thought the Fever were going to win. I thought they were going to lose.
No, I hoped the Fever would win. I hoped.
Well, take hope out of
but Charles, you don't think it's ironic?
This is a preview. And here's the actual media criticism angle driving this whole segment. The claim that Fearless went an entire 10-show stretch, from mid-July into early August, without playing a single Caitlin Clark highlight while she was averaging 29 points and 9 assists a game. That's a specific, checkable claim about editorial choices, not just vibes.
Defense wins championships. At the highest level of, let's just say, basketball, a lot of people can put the ball in the basket. And sometimes you have bad days putting the ball in the basket. I'm sure Charles knows this as a coach. But there's no such thing as a bad day on defense. If you can defend, you can beat anybody because eventually good players will make shots. But if you cannot stop a good player from making shots, you cannot win the championship because you're going to get beat. That's just the bottom line.
I'm going to agree, particularly on the defensive end, in terms of there are moments out there where you can legitimately question Caitlin.
The 45-point, 10-assist, double-double reference here is completely real. Clark set that mark on July 17th against Seattle, the first 40-10 game in 1BA history, and it's confirmed by ESPN, Yahoo, and the league's own site. If a real historic performance like that doesn't get discussed on a major sports debate show, that's a legitimate editorial choice worth questioning.
It's more than capable that the other one may play better, because they're all good players. And so it's the moment of truth. It's who's ready to play that day. And yesterday was Minnesota's day. But this team, here's the problem you got to fix in Indiana, and there's no way of getting around this. Let me say this. You had 4 high-level guards playing at a high level yesterday, all right? And then in the moment of truth, or when the rubber...
The frustration about fan-signed discourse getting more airtime than a 32-point, 11-assist game is a real, specific media priorities complaint, and it's the kind of thing that's genuinely worth holding a national sports show accountable for, regardless of how you feel about Clark personally.
As a 6'5" center off the bench, they have 3 to 4 starters off the bench. The Indiana Fever don't have the depth. Now, if you just say, hey, we're going to roll out and play y'all starting 5 versus our starting 5, between Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark, and Aaliyah Boston, I think you got enough firepower to compete with anybody. But when you got to go to Maisha Hines-Allen or a Ty Harris, they got so desperate, they threw in Raven Johnson. Lexi Hall is buried on the bench. I don't understand what the Indiana Fever, outside of the big 3, they don't have enough to compete with this team at all.
Charles, I think you make a fair point, Maurice. Charles?
The stats cited here, a stretch shooting 55% from the floor, 46% from 3, 90% from the line, is the kind of efficiency number that would dominate coverage for almost any other player in any other sport, and the pushback about it getting ignored until one below-average game happens is a fair, pattern-based critique of selective coverage.
I cannot pick another team when it comes to you. Yeah, there's no way I could suffer like that to you. No.
Prediction before the game? You thought the Fever were going to win. I thought they were going to lose.
No, I hoped the Fever would win. I hoped.
Well, take hope out of
But Charles, you don't think it's ironic?
The free throw double standard call-out is worth sitting with, pointing out that Aja Wilson scored 36 points on 14 free throws with zero criticism about the volume, while Clark drawing contact gets framed as somehow suspicious, is exactly the kind of inconsistency that's fair to call out in real time.
10. Oh, because I know Dre, he used to talk about percentages because, they pulled this little trick on me with the Atlanta Dream third quarter. They waited until one bad third quarter to actually talk about basketball on this show. Until then, they wanted to talk about refs, texts, tauntings, everything else while she was averaging 27 and 7. This is what they do. This is like a rerun.
Right.
Dre, during this 29.
Dre's homeschooled analogy is actually a thoughtful basketball point once you get past the loaded label. The idea that some players who never face real adversity in college can get exposed once real competition arrives in the pros. It's a real basketball development theory, not an insult, even if the framing got heated in the moment.
Fight because everybody wants to be their friend. It's only when they get into a situation with someone who doesn't want to be their friend, they find out that just because everybody else left them alone doesn't mean that they're necessarily tough. Many school kids, they go to school, not homeschool, but they never face a real challenge from anyone until they get to a certain point. Then the fact that they were still sheltered, despite the fact that they were out of the house, still can come back to haunt them in some way. And somebody who is homeschooled, they can be more socialized than somebody who's going to school, depending on what school they're going to and who they're engaging with. When it comes to a player like Caitlin,
the signal versus noise breakdown here is genuinely one of the smarter points in this whole segment. 3.9 million Instagram followers, a cult of supporters, and a cult of critics, and the argument that none of that actually matters compared to what happens on the court. That's solid, level-headed media advice for any athlete under this kind of scrutiny.
There is no problem with the Indiana Fever's offense. They put up 100 yesterday. They put up 100. And even in the games where they was blowing people out, well, I'm saying, okay, but that bad team still got 98. They still got 100. They're on record pace. They're scoring 100 more than anybody in the history of the league. Guess what? They're giving up 100 more than anybody in the history of the league. They can't do it on the other end. Here's the problem. Here's the problem in a nutshell. And here's why I disagree with Jason when he said,
the Game of Thrones hate watch analogy is a fair defense of tough love criticism. The idea that pointing out flaws in something you genuinely care about isn't the same as hating it. Whether or not you buy that as a full defense of the specific commentary being discussed, it's a reasonable framework for how sports criticism is supposed to work.
And Charles and I have agreed, we've all agreed, the Indiana Fever, if you are a middle of the pack or a bottom feeder, you don't have enough to keep up. They can get away with murder on the defensive end. They gave up 16 offensive rebounds to the Seattle Storm. They'll get away with those things. We know they're going to run the bottom feeders and the middle of the pack teams out of the gym. They have not been able to beat the upper echelon.
The basketball analysis here is legitimate and stat supported. Indiana can run up the score against bottom feeder and middle of the pack teams while getting away with real defensive lapses, like the 16 offensive rebounds they gave up to Seattle, but they genuinely haven't beaten the league's upper echelon teams consistently this season. That's a real, fair critique independent of any media coverage debate.
I think the Fever can beat the Minnesota Lynx if Caitlin Clark is playing at her ultimate best. This season, I really do. I think Caitlin Clark should never be the fourth best guard on the court. She should always be the best guard on the court. And then I think if you compare Kelsey Mitchell to Courtney Williams and Olivia Miles,
the free throw pattern argument gets sharper here, pointing out Clark didn't shoot a single non-technical free throw in a specific recent game, then connecting it to a broader claim that officiating tightens up specifically against elite defensive teams like Minnesota. Calling specific officiating fraudulent is a strong opinionated word choice worth flagging as opinion rather than a proven fact, but the underlying pattern of inconsistent whistle rates by opponent is a real, trackable stat worth investigating further.
Pointers, when she really is under stress against Golden State, when she's really under stress against Minnesota, that's my shtick, to put you ahead of the conversation, not just to say, well, it's incredible what she did here with the 45-point deal. I'm gonna let you do that, and I'm going to do something else.
We are all season, and Charles and I have agreed. We've all agreed. The Indiana Fever, if you are a middle of the pack or a bottom feeder, you don't have enough to keep up. They can get away with.
And the closing basketball breakdown is genuinely solid analysis, crediting Minnesota's ball screen defense, Cheryl Reeves' coaching, and real roster depth advantages, while still making the case that Indiana's top 3 talent can compete with anybody if everything clicks. That's a nuanced, credible take, not just a hot take for the sake of engagement.
Should have said this weeks ago to the people in the state of Iowa when we talk about the Iowa women's basketball program. It's not like Caitlin went to a junior college. I mean, Iowa is one of the forebearers of women's basketball. I mean, they've been playing to go to the Final Four for decades. I mean, you go back to the 80s when C. Vivian Springer was the coach there. I mean, they would won the Elite Eight after that. I mean, Iowa's been a really good program. It's not UConn. It's not South Carolina. But Iowa's always been a real good program. Listen, in order to change its players, it's got nothing to